My name is Danielle Burgess Morris, and I work in career services. I hope you enjoyed today's panel, and please do not forget about the DEI Career Fair tomorrow from 3 to 6 p.m. in the Damon Atrium. Also, if you're in attendance today, if you could go ahead and scan this QR code that is up on the screen, so we can go ahead and get you checked in. And if you are in the den, welcome, and I hope you enjoy the lunch. I will go ahead and introduce our panelists. Well, I'll let our panelists introduce themselves. Alicia, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia. I graduated from Loyola last year in 2022, and I got my Bachelor of Business Administration in Management and Human Resource Management. Currently, I'm an HR analyst at Kraft Heinz, and it feels good to be back. I was very involved in CDI, formerly known as SDMA, while I was here, in different orgs as well. So it's great to be back, and I'm looking forward to share my experiences with you all today.
Thank you, Alicia. Elijah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elijah. I graduated in 2022 with a Bachelor of Science in Statistics. And in my time at Loyola, I was in Village for Excellence for what was in CDI, was now previously SDMA. And it's good to be able to be back somewhat and be able to talk with everybody again.
Elijah, can you tell us what you do, please?
Oh, yeah, sure. And so I'm a data engineer now. So I help basically work with company data to make sure it's stored and secure for companies to be able to use that.
Wonderful, thank you. So to the students in attendance, we're going to go ahead and ask our panelists some questions, and then we'll save the last 15 minutes or so for Q&A. So if you're joining us via Zoom, you can drop your questions into the chat box when we come to that time, or if you're in the den, we'll also be taking questions that way. So you'll have a chance to ask some personal questions if we don't touch on the topics you're interested in hearing about. So Alicia, Elijah, if you could both take turns kind of kicking us off and letting us know, what does it mean to you to be authentic at work? Alicia, you can go first.
I feel like in the beginning, it can be a little scary because you're entering like a new space that you're not used to. You're meeting new people. It's kind of like you're attending a new school, but this is more high stakes because it's your job. And so at the beginning, it's a little scary, but I would just advise you all to remember that you're hired for a reason. Your skills and capabilities were like shown through your interviews, and you're hired for a reason. So just believe in that and believe in yourself and your skills and capabilities. And I think that will just further allow you to be your authentic self. Don't be afraid to voice your opinions, your thoughts, and anything that can help like your team, because at the end of the day, that will benefit everybody. So it's important to just remember that like, if you're not your authentic self, then you're going to be someone that you're not, and that's just very exhausting. So it'll take some time, but I would just recommend to do that. And then also to find, like, I know we're going to talk about this later in the panel, but to find groups that you can relate to the most. So there's a lot of like business resource groups at Kraft Heinz, and I like joined the women's business resource group, and then also the Asian Pacific Islander resource group. So I was able to find like people who identify with the same identities as me, and that was very helpful in being my authentic self.
Thank you. Elijah, how about you?
Yeah, and I agree with Alicia saying like those resource groups are really important, because I know a lot of companies have that, especially bigger companies. My company has that too, where it's called like a Black Employee Network. And so they also help with putting us on new projects and just being able to have a sense of community, because I know especially in corporate, there's a lack of diversity within there, even more so than something like even predominantly white institution, for example. And so it can be isolating to not have those resources if you feel like you're just on your own. So I would say really be proactive about wanting to make a situation for yourself where you feel comfortable and you don't feel like you have to try to hide a part of you. Because like Alicia's saying, like it's pretty draining to try to do it all on your own and feel like you have to, like the version of you is night and day from the person outside of work, and it's just not sustainable. So you have to try to make it work for you, and something like a resource group would be really important, because I feel like when I joined, I thought like I had to just do all about myself, but I quickly learned that's not the case. Like you have resources of other people. It just, you have to try to be more proactive about finding that for yourself, because especially like when you get to outside of work, it's all up to you at that point to be able to take your career and where like your identity as far as you want it to go, and make sure that that stays with you throughout.
Thank you. So some would say that being authentic in life or at work is a journey. Can you both tell us about that journey for yourself? Elijah, we'll start with you this time.
Okay, sounds good. So I think when I was younger, I was always really used to being, quote, like different from other people. And oftentimes that meant like in terms of like the color of my skin, because I'm African American, and oftentimes I would be in situations where I'd be one of the few Black kids in an environment. So like, for example, when I was younger, I would be in like engineering camps for the summer. And so oftentimes I would be probably like the only Black kid there, as opposed to like my public school I went to for school, and I was like majority Black. And so at the time I was pretty confused about that, because I was wondering like why it looked so different from like my summer life to my school life. And it was tough to try to understand that, but I think it made it more comfortable for me to be outside of my comfort zone, and to try to interact with people outside of like my immediate identity. And it was also similar because I played soccer too, like all throughout like middle school and high school. And so oftentimes like I'd be one of the few Black kids there as well. And a lot of times like I'd maybe like learn Spanish or people with different languages. So oftentimes it was just me being my authentic self, and it was just only me like with my shared identity. And so I think that kind of sets the table for me to be even more comfortable with going to something like Loyola, where it is a predominantly white institution, where the same situation. And so for me, it's like I feel like I'm being my true authentic self by saying like, this is who I am, and I'm not afraid to show that. And even going through like my job now, where it is like in a more corporate setting, and it is similar, where a lot of people maybe don't look like me immediately, but that's also a way for me to showcase like who I am, and be able to show people like, hey, this doesn't truly like just define me. Like I can show you what I do rather than like what I look like, and I have so much more to offer than just like your immediate impression of me. So I think it's all just kind of a building block and like stepping stones to be able to get where I am today. And I think that's one way of really being authentic, of showing all your experiences and combining that together into who you are at the moment.
Thank you, Elijah. Alicia, how about you?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it definitely like changes throughout like the environments you're in. I kind of had a similar experience. Like growing up, I was able to be my authentic self because I did grow up in a diverse community. And then I came to Loyola, which is a predominantly white institution. And then I had to like find the groups such as like CDI and other organizations where I could be my true authentic self. And it was kind of like a culture shift for me. And then going back to like the workplace, which is, I would say like Kraft Heinz is diverse compared to other companies. But it was a journey in the beginning to really like identify how I can be my authentic self while still being like a professional in the workplace. And I think I'm still on that journey. I don't think it ever stops because like Elijah said, like you kind of had to adapt to like your outside circumstances to like see what works, what doesn't work. But yeah, I would just say like it is a long journey, but you can definitely get through it by being your authentic self and just not giving up on that, and just really knowing like what kind of skills you want to bring to the table while still keeping in mind like you have a personality outside of work, you have interests, hobbies outside of work, and how you can relate to people through those interests and hobbies, I think is really important. But again, like we're always on a journey and I don't think it ever stops. It just depends on like how you adapt to your surroundings at that moment of time.
Thank you. I agree completely. So let's talk about code switching. What are the implications? Alicia, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, so I would say obviously like in the workplace, you don't want to talk in slang, or you don't want to like I'm talking right now, like wanna, like you would want to say want to, or anything like that. Like I think I've really had to keep in mind that I have to maintain a professional demeanor and also talk in a professional way. Versus how I would talk to my family or friends. I obviously would not talk very professionally with them because I'm comfortable with them and that's not the environment we're in. So I definitely have had to like code switch and make sure that the way that I'm talking is presentable, and so that people take me seriously and people take my opinions and what I'm saying seriously. Outside of the workplace, of course, like I talk like how I usually talk, which is very casual and not very formal. But I have had to learn like how to be more formal in the workplace setting, just because that is kind of like the culture that you're walking into. So yeah, it can be a little bit difficult, but I guess like over time you kind of get used to it. But at the same time, you can be your authentic self while still like talking a different way. You can still talk about like what you enjoy or your background and stuff like that while talking professionally, but it is a little difficult at first.
Dan, I think you're on mute.
I said thank you, Alicia, and thank you, Elijah, for catching that. So Elijah, what are your thoughts about code switching?
Yeah, I would say that I agree with Alicia. Like it can be difficult at first. One thing I've tried to do, at least like when I first started working, is I might not be the first person to speak up about something, or like if I'm interacting in conversation with someone, usually I would try to like match their level of professionalism. I think that's been the easiest for me because then I don't have to try to like I don't have to question how like formal or non-formal I can be in situations. And it can be difficult too because you don't always know the answer right away. But I've had to adapt to it at times. Like for example, like there would be times where I may catch myself like Felicia was saying, like I have to enunciate more, or I might not use as many like shortcuts for words. And then also I'm in a new environment in terms of like city. And so some people don't always get the terms I use, which is kind of new for me. So sometimes I try to just keep it as simple as I can with words, and you do get used to it after a while. I would say I found it was more difficult for me in terms of like when I would hang out with my coworkers outside of work. Like if we all go to like a bar, like some food place after work, and then so you have to know whether or not it's as unprofessional or professional there. But yeah, you kind of just pick up on the environment, and after a while, you really just learn how to work with it. And I would say, like, if you're trying to do it too much in terms of code switching, it does get draining after a while. Feeling like you have to try to take off a part of you, like when you're stepping into your office or whatever. So I would say just try to keep it still you. Like it's the core of it is still you and you talking. You just kind of learn how to kind of refine that from there. And like if you words like code switch like pretty much everything and you feel like you're just a completely different person, I think that even like is a way to start feeling imposter syndrome, because you're thinking like, oh, like they don't really know who I am, and that you're just worried that they will find out who you are eventually. And so that can really like lead to burnout. So I would not recommend doing that, but just learn to be like your still foundational true self, and then just learn how to maybe like trim the edges from there.
Thank you. I think that's really, really great advice. So let's say I was to join a company and that company has some gaps in equity and inclusion. What can I do as a new employee to change things in that company to help foster some change? Or should I just start looking elsewhere immediately? Elijah, I'll let you go first.
Okay, so if I were to join a company that had gaps, I would say for one, you would try to look for things that are existing already and try to maybe improve upon those. So if there are measures in place to be able to have like promote diverse equity and inclusion, like I know we mentioned the research groups earlier, they're in companies. Maybe they are having events already and they're just something that they're missing. So I think that's the easiest way to start, because then you already know that they're trying to make these plans in place and they're just maybe some other things they can improve upon. And I think that's a lot easier, especially if you're just joining and starting from scratch. So I would say that would probably be my advice. And then I would say like only look elsewhere if you think like there's just no opportunity for people to want to learn in the first place about this type of thing. Because like diversity, equity, inclusion is really important, especially like nowadays. And having an open mind to be able to want to change is something that's also ingrained like in company culture. And if it's like more of a culture issue and like you can see across the entire board, then that's when you may think that's not the right place for you. And you probably even be able to know that, get that culture vibe before you even start working, like even in interviews. Like it's probably easy to know, like just from talking with people in different groups and departments, of just learning what that culture is like. And so like even in interviews, you should ask culture things like, how is like diverse equity inclusion promoted within your company and what measures are being taken to promote that. So you should be able to know those answers even before you start, and then that'll help you to understand what companies would be the right fit for you.
Thank you. Alicia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Elijah. That's like really important to advocate for yourself and ask about those groups and opportunities that you can take advantage of. I wouldn't say to like automatically look for somewhere else because you worked hard to get this role. So I think it's important to first see what the company has. It might just be as simple as like a conversation with your manager and just expressing like how you want an opportunity to be in either business resource groups or different events that you can take part in. And I would say also if there is nothing available, then maybe you can go to the diversity inclusion team at your company and voice that, it's important to like have a group or like a space for employees with different identities. And then you can kind of talk to them about some options. I know that sometimes like if nothing is available, then you can team up with other employees who share your identities and kind of present a proposal like, we would like to do this, or we would like to do this kind of event. And maybe it's something that the company has never done or never thought of, but you just bringing that idea into the company is really important. And then, like Elijah said, if there's nothing at all available and you just don't feel like it's the right fit for you, then you can start looking for other opportunities. But yes, it's really important to even ask that question in your interviews if that is an important aspect for you. Most companies nowadays do have diversity inclusion initiatives. So it's kind of like rare to not see that anymore. But again, if you don't see something that is important to you or to other employees at your company, then feel free to like bring it up to your D&I team at your company, because I feel like they would love to hear like your thoughts.
Thank you, Alicia. I like that you point out not only bringing up the fact that there might be a gap, but also having some proposals on ways to get the ball rolling in that area. I think, having solutions versus having complaints is really wise when you approach something like that. So yeah, I think that's excellent advice. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of mentorship in the workplace and at work. Alicia, can you tell us a little bit about any experience that you might have with some mentorship at work and how that has been important and played a critical role to what you're doing.
Yeah, so prior to this role, I started off as an HR coordinator. And in that role, my hiring manager and my manager at the time was super helpful. And she was like a mentor to me because she was able to guide me through not only my job, but also give me like advice on how to present myself and how like Craft Irons is as a company. And she was able to guide me to a lot of resources like the BRGs. So she was a great mentor to me. And like without her, I would not know how to even do my job because she really walked me through everything I needed to know in order to be successful. And we also had that personal relationship. So we would be able to talk about like our personal lives and she would guide me through that as well. And we just had a really great connection. So I think it was really important for me to have her as my first manager because without her, I feel like I wouldn't really feel a sense of belonging at Kraft Heinz. And I think about it even to this day, like if I joined right now without having her, it would be kind of hard for me to like meet people, join different BRGs, or even like know how to do my job. So I'm very grateful for her mentorship. And I think it's a really great asset that everyone should take advantage of.
Thank you. Elijah, how about you?
Yeah, so I think mentorship is very critical at work, especially like when you're first starting out, because you may not know all the procedures or policies, like how you to do your job correctly. And so I think it is really important to have someone that was potentially like in your same situation, so they know like how it feels, and so they can kind of empathize with you on that front and be able to really push you to say like this is what it takes to succeed, and I can show you how to get there. So when I first started, my company actually has like a buddy system. So they have someone that is like a level above me. And so they recently was in my role and they were able to just give me transition to my company. The company's called Alumni, we're an IT consulting company. And so I didn't know anything about consulting before I joined. And so she was able to tell me like all of the policies, like how to get on the project, like how like the business model works of the company in general. People to reach out to in the company that would be good to know, like also like in my department, people to reach out to. And also I have a career advisor, so they're the ones that like advocate for me like in promotions. They're more of like a manager level, and so they're able to reach out to me about like potential opportunities for other things going on in the company. So without them, I don't think I'd probably be here right now, like with where I am today, because they also show me people to network with, and just being able to make new friends at work is something that's really important, and that becomes a lot easier when you have someone that is a mentor. And it doesn't have to be a specific mentor like program. It can just be people that you look up to in the company, because then you can see like how they got to where they are and be able to learn from them. So if there isn't a mentorship specific program at work, just find someone that you do want to mentor you, and then just follow them and like see how they go about what they do, and then you should be able to eventually do the same. Daniel, you're on mute again.
I'm sorry. Thank you. So, is there anything that we haven't discussed that either of you feel is important to contribute to the conversation around being your authentic self in the workplace?
Sorry, you can go ahead.
I would say like try to also meet people that are maybe come from your same background in work, because that helps to feel a little bit closer with someone at work, where maybe if you feel like you can't connect with other people, if there's someone that kind of has your similar experience, I think that's been very helpful. Like my career advisor, he's also Black, and I think that's helped me kind of talk with him on more personal issues I may have at work, or just maybe concerns I have. So I think that's really helped me to feel more grounded with who I am and like my identity at work. So I would say find someone like your similar background or experience, and I think that'll help you greatly for sure.
Thank you. Alicia?
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely. And also another thing I think we didn't touch on is imposter syndrome, which is really big. And it's basically where you feel like you're not capable to do something. And it mainly lies within people who hold different identities. And so I feel like that did hit me when I first started. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't capable. I like did not deserve this job, but all of those thoughts like negatively impact you. So I really suggest to go in confidently, and you won't know everything. Another thing is like you won't really know your job until you do it. Like school teaches you the basics, but I think until you're in that job, you won't really know how to do your job. So it's really important to give yourself grace, and also just go into it with an open mind, go into it with being willing to learn different things, and I think you'll be successful. But for imposter syndrome, I think it's really important to remind yourself that you are capable, you got this job for a reason. And just to, if you're ever in those moments where you don't feel like that, then just to keep on reminding yourself that, and eventually, like once you are in it, like for a couple months, you'll be more comfortable and you'll be able to like do your job in a heartbeat. So
Wonderful. Thank you. Do any of our attendees have any questions either via Zoom or in the den? If you're on Zoom, you can drop it in the chat box. And if you are in the den, Mary can help you. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat box or let Mary know, and we can ask our panelists.
We have a question in the den, Danielle. Just give us 1 second, all right?
Yep, go ahead, take your time.
So I like to dress like bright with like bright colors, and I like to change my hair up a lot with different colors and things. I guess just my question is, how do you find that balance? Like, I don't know, I feel like I like to express myself through how I look sometimes. But I guess it's just, how do you balance that is my question.
That's a really, really great question. Alicia, Elijah, anybody want to take that?
Can you repeat the question one more time? It's hard to hear over. Or maybe put in the chat possibly.
Okay. Yeah, my question was just like, how do you find a balance with how you present yourself? I like to dress like bright colors and different hairstyles with different colors. So I guess it's just like, how do you find that balance and stay true to yourself, but then also, I don't know, not ruffling any feathers? Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I can say a little bit about it. So I when I was still working now, and I only cut it like a couple months ago, and it wasn't for the appearance thing. It was more so just like the maintenance. I got tired of it, but I had it all throughout my internship of working and all that. And I know I was in a good position because I worked remote a lot of the time. So even if someone really was like had a thought about me or had an impression of me from my hairstyle, oftentimes like I would have and like they'd have cameras off too. But I'd say like even when I went into the office, I think just to make sure I'm having the best version of myself rather than a complete new person. So whether that be like, for example, my I'm sure to have it and still put together. Wait, hold on.
Yeah, Elijah, you're cutting out.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. Elijah, I can't hear you. Bridget, can you hear him? No. So, can you guys hear me, Mary and Bridget? Okay, so Elijah, can you try again? Yeah, I'm not hearing you. Maybe it would be helpful if you could just type your key points and drop it in the chat. Okay, and while you're doing that, I will say, and I know that I'm not a panelist, and I'm also going to tell this young lady I don't have a direct answer for you, but as a Black woman in particular, so I will say, I think I've been seeing more of a trend of people, Black women, especially on LinkedIn, right? I don't know if you've seen this, but they're the photos, right, with their interview hair. Like one side is interview hair, one side is their regular hair, right? This is something I feel like women of color in particular really struggle with. I like to wear my hair in its natural state, which is big and puffy and curly and, you know, fluffy. But when it's time for an interview, my hair is going to be straight or it's going to be pulled back into a severe bun at the nape of my neck, right? Because that is, in my mind, and I think in a lot of people's minds, the most professional kind of image. Now, once I get my job, my curls will be out and about. But that's just me. I think it is something that the world, the country is starting to come around to slowly, but it's going to be very slow progress. So I feel like as long as you are not offending anybody, right? You're not inappropriately dressed at work, or you're not, you're clean and you're well kept. I feel like things like hair and color, the color of your clothes, should not be that big of a deal. Now, we know that we live in a world that's not the case, right? But if it's a day that you know you're going to go sit down with a group of board members, I would not wear, you know, a hot pink top and a green skirt. I would wear something a little bit more conservative. I think it's just about using your judgment. But if it's a day where you're just, you know, doing notes or taking meetings with your colleagues or something like that, then being a little bit more fun in your color choice or your hair choice might be a little different. I think it comes down to what you feel the most comfortable with and what you feel is the most professional, and kind of what your day, what your environment, what the culture of your company kind of dictates is the most personal and professional. So for me in my role, I'm an event coordinator. On my event days, I'm going to have on, you know, I'm not going to have on a suit, but I'm going to have on a jacket, you know, and a nice pair of slacks, and my hair will probably be pulled up at least out of my face. It might still be curly, but it might be pulled up out of my face so people can see me make eye contact. On days like today where I'm moderating and I'm also, you know, running around trying to get things ready, I'm going to be in jeans and a dark green shirt, and, you know, my hair is going to be up with a whatever this thing is, a headband. You know, I feel like my appearance is pulled together enough. I'm not offending anybody with the way that I look. And I feel like I feel like it's really personal, and you have to kind of monitor the culture of the company that you're at and just play that kind of by ear. But I will say, I think the trend is starting to move more towards, if my hair is offensive to you and it's in its natural state and it's not, you know, 17 different colors, then guess what? It is what it is. I think we're starting to see that trend move more that way, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take, quite frankly, some education. It just will. So Alicia, what do you have to say? Elijah, you can try again if you would like to, and see if we can get you back with the audio. Right. So Elijah's saying that when he did have his dreads, he would make sure to put the best version of himself forward rather than someone completely different altogether. I just made sure that I look put together, which I think is the key. You just want to make sure, as long as you're looking professional, you're put together, I think that you're fine. I think sometimes it's about education, you know, educating up and out. Alicia, please tell us what you think about this.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, as long as you're dressing professional, and just putting yourself in like a good professional appearance, I think that's like the only thing I guess you have to follow. Definitely feel free to dress in however many colors you want, as long as it's like professional and it is like accepted, I guess, at your company. Personally, like at my company, I've seen the chief human resource officer like walk around in like fun skirts and colors. So it definitely like varies from company to company. But I would encourage you to, dress however you would like, because that in itself is presenting yourself as your authentic self at work. So yeah, that's my take.
Thank you. That was a really, really good question. Do we have any more questions from any other attendees? And so Elijah is saying here, if they are unaccepting of the best version of you that's still authentic, then it's probably not the company you would want to work for anyway. Which I agree. Mary, do we have any more questions in the den?
It doesn't look like we do right now. Any more questions?
Okay, any more questions on the Zoom? You can feel free to drop in the chat box. But if there are no more questions, I just want to remind everybody again that the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Career Fair is tomorrow. It'll be from 3 to 6 p.m. in the Damon Atrium. If you have not registered, please go ahead and register today. You don't have to register to come. You can just show up. We have some great companies that are lined up to be in attendance tomorrow, so I hope you will be able to join us. Thank you so much to our panelists, Alicia and Elijah, for joining us. We appreciate you making time for this today, and we appreciate your thoughts and insights into this topic. Thank you all so much for joining.